our top stories, we begin right away in Uganda, where Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has described the explosion at the capital as a terrorist act and promised to hunt down those responsible for the explosion that killed 1 and injured 5. Spokesperson for the police, Fred Enange, while speaking to reporters, explained the events leading to the explosion and the identity of the only person killed.
That the explosion at Komamboga Ward has been confirmed to be an intentional act of domestic terror. The facts gathered clearly indicate that 3 men disguised as customers arrived at the eating point, which belongs to Lule Samuel, at around 8:30 p.m. Of course, after the 3 suspects had left the scene, they ultimately detonated the improvised explosive device that caused injuries to a total of 4 victims. These 4 victims were within the radius of 5 square meters. Right now, our condolences go to the family of one of the deceased, identified as Emily Nyinaneza, a 20-year-old waitress.
We just heard from the Ugandan spokesperson giving us details of the very sad incident. Now, President Museveni said that he had been briefed that 3 people left the package at the scene that later exploded, adding that investigators were still combing the bomb site and more details will be released later. He also advised the public to deal with this situation as a possible terrorist act. Meanwhile, Uganda has enforced a nationwide coronavirus-related situation from 7 p.m. but is not uniformly enforced.
Well, don't forget that you can also recall that on October 8th, the ISIS group claimed responsibility for an alleged bomb attack on the police post in Kawampe, near where Saturday's explosion occurred. Now, no blast or any injuries were reported by authorities or local media at the time, though police later confirmed a minor incident had occurred. So this is one sad incident that we are getting to see here taking place in Uganda. But of course, the more you stick with us on News Central, we look forward to bring to you more details on that. It's quite sad that this is happening. Museveni, one thing that we know him to do is he always comes out and is always proactive to speak. And that's exactly what the people were looking forward to hear. The papers have already said it as well, that you have experts who are combing around the place that the bomb took place, and they are taking their time to ensure that they get every information and every details that are necessary.
We have to recall that this is not the first time an incident like this has happened. In 2010, a group of Islamic extremists also came out and they bombed an area where over 74 or 73 people were killed as well. And the Islamic group came out to claim responsibility for this. Now, as we speak, right now, from what the police spokesperson from Uganda has come out to say, he also noted that there were some nails and some other local materials that were used for this explosive at the site where the explosive materials were gathered. And we know we'll be getting more information on that.
So that makes it clear that it was locally made. Anyway, let's bring to you more top stories right now. Well, away from Uganda, let's come back to West Africa with a 12-day ultimatum handed the federal government by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, for the unconditional release of their leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, failure of which the November 6th governorship election in Anambra state may not hold. The stage appears set for a 7-day lockdown of the southeast zone. IPOB's media and public secretary, Ima Powerful, in a statement in Oka, the Anambra state capital, said the protest was aimed at prevailing on the federal government to release its leader, Nnamdi Kanu.
Now, the group vowed that the protest would go on as planned if Kanu, who is facing trial on a 7-count amended charge bordering on treason and terrorism, was not released before November the 4th. Now, the group has also warned residents of the southeast against flouting the impending sit-at-home directive, stressing that doing so amounts to testing the resolve of the people on the Biafra project.
Well, we're now being joined by constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst, Barrister C.C. Chukwudi. He joins us all the way from Awka, the Anambra state capital. Good morning, Barrister Chukwudi.
Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
All right, so let's start by asking, how and what is the current situation of things in the southeast, especially Awka, where you are?
Currently in Awka, like I used to say, is generally peaceful, except of course what is now the unusual normal, which is the Monday sit at home, which everybody is currently observing, including the school, because I saw a news recently by Anambra State Basic Education Board, IPOB, saying that in compliance with that particular regulation, school will now be observed on Saturdays in order to augment the Mondays, which according to the IPOB could no longer be a working day, including for students. So every place is calm, except of course that there is a tension here and there in observance to those declarations of sit-at-homes on every Monday. So like today, some of the banks, some of the students or schools are not open for business or for educational activities. And that is why every other place is quite calm, and businesses are not open like you see shops, markets, and other things. That is usual. The unusual normal, it happens in Anambra State and many other parts of the southeastern states every Monday.
Right, Barrister. I mean, this brings the economic activity in Anambra State almost to a halt on a day like this. Now, we saw the outcome of Nnamdi Kanu's arraignment in court just last week. What are your thoughts on the court's decision? Barrister, can you hear us?
The decision,
right,
I get you clear. Please come again.
Right, we're talking about Nnamdi Kanu's court arraignment that happened just last week. Tell us your thoughts on the court's decision.
The decisions of the court, particularly, it was just an arraignment. And like I said, it was there was an observation of what we call post-amendment procedure. Post-amendment procedure is a procedure that is observed after an amendment is done on a charge. When a charge is altered, either by way of addition, reduction, or inclusion of certain facts in order to bring it or bring its efficacy to bear, now that will be, it will be observed post-amendment procedure. The charges will be read for him again to take a fresh plea. That was what happened on the last adjourned day. And then that day, there was an application, so we have that he be moved from the custodies of DSS to the correctional center, which the Honorable Court rejected. And by so doing, the court adjourned till November 10th in order to hear the substantive application challenging the jurisdiction of the Honorable Court. So our thought generally is that once an arraignment has taken place, plea taken, and the defendant has pleaded not guilty to the count of the charges, then it means that trial has commenced. And once trial has commenced, every other looking and waiting for justice to be done, so that the people in the prosecution side will lead their evidence and then present their witnesses in order to justify the charge against the defendant. And where they fail to do so, the court will do the needful upon applications of the defendant's counsel.
All right, let's look at the 12-day ultimatum handed the federal government by IPOB for the unconditional release of Kanu. The group equally is threatening to scuttle the Anambra election come November 6. Do you see any headway in all of this?
Indeed, I would rather condemn such ultimatum in all sense of reasonability. in all sense of fairness. I believe that what we are now, if an application is pending before the court, if a matter is subject before the Honorable Court, what is required by all the parties is to observe the regular constitutional process. Make an application officially to the court for either the release or a expeditious trial of the defendant. Putting an ultimatum that he be released unconditionally is setting the cart before the horse. It means that you have known that indeed he has subject.
Okay, we seem to have a little network glitch right there, but we still have Barrister Chukwudi here with us. Hopefully here.
I don't know where you get me at.
All right, we can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. What I'm saying in essence before that interruption was since Nnamdi Kanu and the team of his lawyers have submitted themselves to the regular procedures of the Honorable Court, courts required and constitutionally speaking that they allow the constitutional process to take its course, the judicial course to play, in order that if they need an application to release him, they should make such application to the Honorable Court and not to place unnecessarily mandate to the community, to the people living in Anambra State, to the people living in the Southeast who are currently suffering not only economic setback, but I've just mentioned educational setback.
Barrister, I think.
Because the children are no longer going to school on Monday. People are not would indeed place a lot of hardship. Sitting on the side of law would be a subsidy, such an action which is taken against the cause of justice, against the free flow of justice, or trying to use any other self-help in order to get a decision from the court, would not assist the Honorable Court in taking a proper decision. I think that it's a misfiring. It's an action which is taken outside the judicial process, and as such, it's not encouraged.
Right, Barrister, now looking at this scenario, I mean, for every day that economic activity in Anambra is put to a halt, you have 10 million naira, minimum of 10 million naira is lost per day because of the sit at home. Now, what happens if election doesn't take place come November 6th?
Indeed, there are several situations which may happen, and the election may not take place. It's not only that there is a declaration, if we have such situations and the law takes full cognizance of such situations, and if such a thing happens, there is likelihood that the election may be postponed to a particular day in order to allow security to down. I've mentioned what happened in Borno State in 2016 when there was serious insecurity, and during that period, the election was postponed to a particular day. The Constitution allows it. If we look at Section 178 of our Constitution and we look at subsection 2, it says that it will not be held within a particular day, not later than 30 days before the date of the expiration of the current tenure of the governor, or not earlier than 60 days before the expirations of the. So we are still within the ambit of time. All that will be done is that let it not be the outside the constitutionally provided period, so as to allow the situation to calm down. What we are advising is that if the INEC, looking at the scenario, looking at the entire situation, and finds out that it is totally unconducive for election to be held on 6th day of November 2020 and 21, there is likelihood that it will be shifted to another adjusted date in order to accommodate the area that is a troubling society or troubling area. So if By so doing, what will happen generally is that there is likelihood of shifting the election to a date that is most convenient. But where at all it never happened, where at all it never happened, such a situation is not created under our own law. There must be a solution to that effect.
All right, so just to wrap things up quickly, you've said that there might be a shift of dates to another time, but there has been continued silence on the part of the Southeast governors over this issue. Just recently, I'd say yesterday, APGA, APC and PDP have gone ahead to say that elections will hold, and yet we haven't heard from the governors. What do you make out of this?
Sincerely speaking, I do not think there has been silence on the part of the governor. I've heard the governor of Anambra spoken in few occasions, guaranteeing that there will be an election within the state. In fact, when the Attorney General did suggest to prevent the election, there is considerations of a state of emergency. The governor responded immediately and saying that all the facilities and all the plans have been put in place. In fact, some of the areas affected during the insecurity have been restored. So the government is ready to that effect. You know, if I must say, the governor cannot at all times come out and continue to say election must hold, election must hold. It is within the ambit of the INEC to conduct the election, not the governor. The Constitution clearly says so. So the governor will only assure that there is a security in my own zone, in my constituency, in my own state. But it is for the INEC to champion the conduct of the election and not the governor. So the governor has made it clear that the security is so firm and clear for the election to be conducted. It is for the INEC to assess the situation and then proceed with the election. And if there are areas that elections were unable to be conducted during the day, there will be a date for MAPO.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst, barrister C.C. Chukwudi, joining us all the way from Oka this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
All right, we just heard that from the constitutional lawyer talking about the Anambra election come November 6th. So according to our constitution, we're still within the time frame should anything happen to November 6th or on the day of November 6th. Hopefully, Joe, I hope nothing happens, and I hope Anambrarians are ready and are safe enough to come out to cast their votes.